What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a fun tinfoil hat theory for you. We're going to be talking about simulation theory, um, time travel, kind of a blend of of multiple different things. So our topic today actually comes from Jordan Crowder on Twitter or X. I'm going to play a little video for you, and we will kind of discuss it and connect it to a few other topics. So listen up and enjoy.
Somebody asked me if my simulator theory can explain aliens and UFOs, and the answer is a big ol' yes. Not only can it explain aliens and UFOs, it does so beautifully and better than any other theory that I have found. It can actually make sense of things that are currently just unexplainable. So this video might make your head hurt a little bit as our awareness expands. It's sort of like being sore after going to the gym. It's a good thing. But let's dive right in. So in my simulator theory, I postulate that the entire cosmos, whether it's this physical matter reality here or our dream world or the astral, are all made of the same stuff. But the system can apply rule sets to different areas, which make them unique and special and behave and operate and feel totally different. And you also have to have a particular frequency or vehicle or avatar to operate in that area because it has to match the rule sets. Here's an example. If I want to jump in the ocean, I can. If I want to go to the bottom of the ocean, I better be in a submarine or I will be crushed and die. But it's made of the same stuff, right? That's crazy. But the rule set says the further you go down, the density builds and the pressure builds and yada yada. But if I get in a submarine, I can submerge down there safely. Now, that explains how something, how you have to have the proper vehicle to go into a particular area. Now, this vehicle here, I've talked about in many videos, that our physical body is simply a physical vehicle for our non-physical consciousness to enter down into and to play this game. Okay. You cannot fully enjoy and experience.
So I want to pause it here just now, and talk about the whole physical body and avatar vehicle situation. I grew up Catholic, and one thing that I was raised, hearing is treat your body like a temple.
Right. Yeah.
One of those things, and mind, body, and soul, right? And I found that kind of interesting when I was first watching this. Do you have any thoughts on that, Chris? I know you're not particularly religious, but
No, I'm not really religious. I just think it's interesting that the whole consciousness as using our bodies as a vehicle. I mean, there's got to
yeah,
be something to
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll keep playing it. Just I kind of wanted to touch on that.
This Earth life simulator without being in the right avatar, right? Because you can come down here as pure consciousness, of course. And that's what we see when we see light orbs everywhere. It's just conscious, it's a disembodied consciousness.
Also very
But you can't
interesting.
fully experience
Yeah.
it. You can't do all the fun stuff. You can't talk to people. You can't go ride a bike. You can't play in the ocean. You can't have sex. Can't eat chocolate. All that fun stuff without having a physical body. So we see consciousnesses here all the time in the form of light orbs, but that's just a disembodied consciousness. There's only so much interaction you can have there. Now, if a extraterrestrial, an alien, which is literally just a consciousness from somewhere else, whose origin point is not focused on Earth, it's focused somewhere else. Now, where they're from, they might not have bodies anymore. They might not need them. Like Robert Monroe in one of his books, he talks about in the future, when he goes to the future on Earth, they have ascended out of the need for physical bodies and they live just as spirits in the spirit world. But it's super cool because they have these pods underneath trees at the base of trees, and they'll come down to Earth and they'll jump in the bodies. The pods have human bodies in them, and they'll go and frolic through fields and swim in streams and stuff and just have fun. It's like R&R. It's like a vacation for their soul. And they, so how we do out of body travel, they do in body travel. So like right now I can go home, put on my headset, listen to Hemi sync, and I can leave my body, right? Anybody can have an out of body experience temporarily. They do the opposite. They have in body experiences, right? So even on Earth, the human consciousness evolves to a point where it uses a body as a, like renting a car. You hop in it, you have some fun, you hop out. Now, what's to say aliens or extraterrestrials aren't doing the same thing? Because Robert Monroe just went to the year 3000 something. So that's just 1,000 years in the future. Some of these alien species, or some of these, can't even say that. Some of these non-Earth consciousnesses might be millions of years more advanced than us. They might easily be able to hop from avatar to avatar. So imagine that there's a craft outside of Earth that literally 3D prints on demand, avatars and craft. Okay. Now, if that's the case, if there is this craft that's literally just AI generating and 3D printing different meat suits and craft to come into the simulator, what would we expect to find? We would expect that, just like AI, if I go to AI right now and I put in a command, make a picture of UFO.
Okay, so I hate to cut it off there. It kind of goes off into, which I actually find very compelling. It goes off into, this guy rather. He starts talking about the different shapes and different appearances of these UFOs, which is actually very, very interesting. And I highly suggest, and like normal, I'll be linking this in the description below for you guys to click on and kind of finish out the rest of the video. We're about halfway through. It's interesting though. He starts talking about why you see different shapes like triangles, saucers, orbs, and if it were AI and you generate it one-time use type of situation,
Yeah.
it'll give you a different picture. If you played around with AI image creators, like you're never going to get the same picture with the same prompt.
He touches on aliens. A lot of the aliens are bipedal like us too. They all have striking
Yes.
similarities to us.
Yeah, and that's another thing. The what's the word?
Bipedal.
Bipedal. Yeah, the walking up on two feet.
Yeah.
So a lot of interesting things in his posts. And again, this guy is Jordan Crowder, I believe. Sorry. Yeah, Jordan Crowder. If you are interested by that, by all means, click on the link and watch the rest of it. Really, what I kind of want to talk about was this whole simulation idea, and that a lot of the common talk with abductions and extraterrestrial encounters, you know, and kind of just put it out there, like, I'm not buying everything that he's saying. I just think there's a lot of common ground in what he's saying with other different experiences.
Yeah.
And the one that I specifically want to talk to you about is Dr. Michael Masters. I was showing or me and Chris were watching a podcast at from Danny Jones, and I'll link that below. But this Michael Masters experience, he essentially talks about the same thing about the whole avatars and like these beings using humans as avatars and conduits essentially to communicate, from their existence or psychology to ours. And you know I'm not saying that just because you went to a school you're more critical or credible, but this guy, he received a PhD in anthropology at Ohio State University in 2009. I'm talking about Michael P. Masters. He he specializes in hominin evolutionary anatomy, archaeology, and biomedicine. So the guy is,
He's educated.
he's well educated. So, and I'm not saying a well educated person can't be a little cuckoo, but I
Definitely.
think it's important to kind of bring up his background and his experience is that, and again, I'll link this podcast below. His experience is that he essentially, like, he had his mind taken over, and had what he refers to allegedly information downloaded or streamed into his head. It's a freaking wild story. Chris, I know you're
Super
fresh
crazy.
on it. You're fresh on
Super
it. So
crazy. Yeah.
I'd like to know your thoughts on the story itself that I'm talking about, and then in conjunction with the guy from Jordan Crowder and what his simulation story was, because I think that's really the main
Yeah.
kind of point I'm trying to make here.
Well, the story itself was so wild. It's almost hard to describe, but I mean, it's just Consciousness is one of those things that we don't really understand. We don't have a grasp on why
Yeah,
it is what it
12%
is.
of the brain, right?
Right. And there seems to be something there. And I think there's a lot of truth to the fact that something in our brain allows us to receive whatever consciousness is. And for whatever reason that they picked him to give him information, it's just, it's such a crazy story, man. It's hard to break down.
It is, and more so, it really what I'd like to talk about in this conversation is the whole idea of avatar, or even telepathy in that sense, right? Because you hear this a lot, like the Varginha case, in
Right. Yeah.
Brazil,
Yeah.
how they apparently had a telepathic communication. Also with the Zimbabwe case at the school. Um,
Yeah.
you're familiar with that one, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and all of a lot of these cases, you have a telepathic communication,
Yep.
and I'm just wondering if it's when it comes down to consciousness, and I wish I knew more about consciousness,
Right. Well,
so at
yeah.
least what we know as a human race, because I think it's very like we don't actually know much about it, but I wish I knew enough to be able to at least speak on this,
I,
but
I
I
think
I
I think there's some truth to those type of things like telepathy and remote viewing and stuff like that. I mean, the CIA was digging around playing with that stuff in the 60s,
right. The
and
men who stare at goats.
right. And if they, I mean, there has to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
something to that if they're going to dedicate 20 years to
Well,
researching stuff like that. And for whatever reason, I feel like there's something there. You know what I mean? And we don't
yeah,
even
yeah.
understand how much of the human brain do we understand at this point? Like
I
very
mean,
small,
I think they say 10 to 12%. We
yeah,
understand, like
dude.
we know what the brain does for the most part. We don't know how it does it. That's
I,
kind of
I
what I
th-
understand.
I think our brains are probably capable of doing a lot more than
Right.
what we realize we're capable of
Well,
doing.
also it plays a role with memory and stuff. And from what I understand, you can actually store information in like water molecules.
Yeah,
I could be completely wrong on that, but have you looked in or heard about something about that? Like
I've
you
heard
can,
that. I've heard you can store it in crystals, different type of shit like that.
yeah. And so if it like, okay, so if you could store information in water, individual water molecules, like wouldn't it make more sense that like why we don't understand things about consciousness and memory is because we're looking at the physical matter of our brain and not the liquid
Yeah.
within the brain? I mean, I could be sounding like a total stoner right now, but
No, no,
I
it's
mean,
just
dude, it makes me think, right? Like,
sometimes who knows, man? They could be looking in all
yeah,
the wrong places.
yeah.
It could be something that we haven't even discovered yet. We don't even understand where to look. It's just we'll get there when we get there, and eventually, hopefully, one day we get to a point where we can
And
understand some of this stuff.
and one thing I'd like to talk about too is the simulation aspect of it, right? Like, because I
Yeah,
think he brings up a good point with the whole crafts and you're never gonna see the same craft, but it does kind of seem like, even if there were hundreds of them, because some of these like military personnel have seen like the same orbs, uh, or say same cubes with like a spherical orb around them,
yeah,
like with Commander Fravor, like you see multiple of them. Well, what if they're just printing these things?
yeah,
So there's a level of curiosity when it comes to that, and then also the telepathy, like if they're from the future. So a lot to unpack there. We're not going to spend an hour talking about this, but I thought this one was interesting.
it's very interesting. The whole
Yeah, I
idea
mean,
of
you're the one that shared this with
consciousness.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
dude.
mean, when I watched it, I was like, "Holy shit, this is actually kind of a crazy a
In
crazy theory."
anything with consciousness
Yeah.
avatar type stuff and just anything like that is always super interesting to me.
Yeah, same here, man. Well, thank you for coming by tonight.
No problem, man. Thank you.
For anyone listening, please, like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more, or hear more long form conversation between us and a few others. We like to stream on Thursdays most of the time. Sometimes it's Friday, sometimes it's Wednesday. But yeah, thank you guys for showing up if you did, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.